Yeah, let's put the music on first, man. Hello, everyone. This is Omar from the Third Rail, trying to get this music going. Can't even find it. It's amazing how things happen. They don't work. First of all, I would like to say thank God I'm alive. I was sick for 3 weeks, really, really sick. Now I'm feeling great. Let's put on that music. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Welcome everyone. This is Omar. Welcome to the Third Rail. Today's show, we're gonna talk about something very important. We're gonna talk about Ukraine and Russia. A year ago, about a year ago, Putin made the greatest mistake in his presidency and probably in the history of Russia by invading Ukraine. As you can see from the photo I have here, you can't see them. Let me put it like this. Okay. Oh, spaghetti. Okay. This is me. I made this. This is Russia, and that cheese is Ukraine. And you know what the cheese is? The mouse always can't help himself to the cheese. You always gotta have that cheese. The mouse always has to have that cheese because I don't know what is. All right, picture. All right, let me remove this a little bit. Let me put it back. Okay. All right, let me put it back now. So Putin made the biggest mistake. Putin, as you know, what happened in Ukraine is the same thing that happened in 1990 with Saddam Hussein. When Saddam Hussein was goaded and made to believe that he could invade Kuwait. Once he invaded Kuwait, they attacked him, they attacked his army and destroyed his country because they didn't like Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was making a lot of noise. The same thing Putin has been doing. Putin has been a headache to the West. He's been getting involved in the elections. People, the computer, they take hostages, the companies' passwords, and they pay millions of dollars to get their passwords back. In other words, he became a pharaoh. He became an outlaw. If you can see, Putin was the darling of the West when he first started. First, let's go back to the history of. Let me put this away. Oh, listen, I'll put myself away. All right. Sorry about that. As you know, in 1989, the Soviet Union collapsed. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of countries seceded because they had the Soviet Union. They had all these like 30, 40 countries, the Warsaw, Poland, Czechoslovakia, the Baltics. All these countries were under the umbrella of the Soviet Union. Once the Soviet Union embarrassingly collapsed on its own weight due to the war in Afghanistan for 10 years and its monetary issue, Russia was humiliated and became just another country. In other words, Russia became this country with no real power anymore, like influence. They do have nuclear weapons, but they just become a gas station with nuclear weapons. They don't make anything. They don't. They just they have a lot of food, like a lot of grain. But I mean, you don't go to the store and say, "Oh, look what I gotta buy. Let's see what Russia's making." Nothing. So, um, the breaking of the former Soviet Union. As the Soviet Union broke, Putin came to power in 2000. What he did is he's a criminal. What he did, let me see if this is the right video. He created a false flag. That false flag is he created this terrorist attack on buildings inside Moscow. Let's
see what was going on.
Wait, hold on.
And in particular,
let me see. Okay, this is in 1999. This is a housing complex that was bombed inside Moscow, and he used that as a pretext to gain power. Once that happened, Boris Yeltsin was kicked out of power, and he became. Let's look at
the approval rating of former President Yeltsin was 2%. There appeared to be no chance whatever that Putin, who was designated by Yeltsin as his successor, could possibly become the next Russian president. The apartment bombings changed everything.
So you see, the bombing that happened is called a false flag. You know that Putin used to work in the KBG, so he created this incident to put fear in the people's minds and hearts that Boris Yeltsin was no longer the real president of Russia. He cannot protect him. So he came to power in 2000. He was loved by the West and everything. He used to play the piano and all that stuff. But we have to give credit to Putin. Putin at first, let me put this away. I don't know why I do this. Putin at first, he tried to join NATO. He went to NATO and said, "Can Russia join NATO?" Because you gotta understand. Let's look at this first. This is the map. You see the map? All these countries have joined NATO or the European Union. They used to belong to the. They used to belong to Russia or under umbrella. The only ones left is Ukraine. You see, Ukraine and Belarus is still with Russia, but all these countries, as you can see, the deep blue during the Cold War, the light blue joined after the Soviet Union fell in 1990, and the light blue one joined after Russia annexed Crimea. So as you can see, Russia sees itself as isolated. NATO had promised in 1989, when the Soviet Union collapsed, that they would not move toward the eastern bloc of Europe. That is known that's the playground for Russia. Russia was in trouble economically. It was in disarray. And they made a gentleman agreement by talk, Jim Baker and Gorbachev. In 1997, once they started moving toward these countries, Gorbachev, Russia said, "Did you say you're not going to move?" He said, "We never did anything in writing. We didn't write it down. It was just a gentleman talk. We were just talking." So in 2008, so in 2002, 2003, Putin goes to the European Union. He said, "I want to join NATO." They say it's a long process. It takes time. You have to file application and all that. Then he said he wanted to join the European Union. The European Union is not going to take him, not because they hate Russia, but Russia has 150 million people. The European Union is about 300 million. So if Russia had joined the European Union, they'll become the dominant state inside the European Union when it comes to elections or anything of that nature. The best thing for Russia is not Russia. The best thing for the West was they should have never just taken over the countries around. They should have never just grabbed all these countries around Russia. They should have embraced Russia and took Russia in, not inside NATO or the European Union, but inside the economic atmosphere. Make Russia rich, make the people have money, and Russia will become entrenched into Western society. But what they did is they pushed Russia out in the cold. You heard that before. At the same time, there was a lot of investments. As you can see, but when the war started in Ukraine, they had like 800 McDonald's, 700 what's that called? Starbucks. They had, a lot of companies in Russia. The economy was doing good. But when Putin was refused to go into the European Union, NATO, in 2008, he invaded Georgia. Under what? I'm going to put this picture. See, that's Hitler or that? I'm going to tell you why I put that picture. In 2008, under the pretext that there was Russians living in Georgia, and he had to go in and protect those Russian minorities. As you know, the Soviet Union had a lot of people, so there's Russians all over the place. But he's using the pretext of Hitler. Hitler in 1930s, he invaded his neighbor because he had German citizens in those countries under the pretext that he wanted to protect those German citizens. Nobody did anything. So. And he was doing two things. At the same time, Georgia could not join NATO because to join NATO, you have to have zero conflict. So what he did is he created a frozen conflict. He has troops inside Georgia. So Georgia cannot join NATO because they already have a problem. He did the same thing in 2014 to Crimea. I hope this mic is working because I don't hear nothing. He did the same thing to Crimea. Let me just check this mic, guys. Give me a second. Sorry, man. I just did a video and I'm doing this because I haven't done a lot of stuff in a while. Yeah, this is the microphone. Everything is cool. Everything is good. Let me see. Hello. I don't know, man. Is it? Oh, man, the mic was not working. Hello? Okay, I hope it's working because I didn't see it was not working, man. That's a shame. Let me lift it up. Okay. All right, so I think I fixed it. I don't know. So let's go back to our situation in Russia. Russia was tricked into going into Ukraine. Let's be honest here. So what Putin was doing is he invaded in 2014. He invaded Ukraine and took Crimea. To people who know history, Crimea belongs to Russia. Crimea was put into the Ukraine by Stalin as a way to redistrict the maps wherever, and became under the municipality of Ukraine. Really, Crimea is a Russian island. Everybody knows that. It used to belong to Turkey during the Ottoman Empire. So the situation is okay. What he did there, he did the same thing to Ukraine. You see, now Ukraine cannot join the European Union. Wait, let me show this map. Okay, you see the map. Ukraine cannot join the European Union because Crimea is under the occupation of the Russian army. So you cannot join that there. He did the same thing in Moldavia. He has about 1,500 troops. He was doing the same thing. And what the NATO and the Europe realized was, listen, this guy has a lot of ambitions. We have to put him in a hole, or we have to trick him into doing something so we could deplete him and deplete Russia and make Russia get into a foreign entanglement war, like what he's doing right now. Okay, they could have did him in Syria, but he's in Syria, with the regime. But they don't want to do it there because they want to give good weapons. They don't want to make the same mistake they made in Afghanistan when they gave the Stinges and all these weapons to the Mujahideen, and they're gonna have issue because they cannot give the same weapons they give in Ukraine to the people in Syria. So what they did is they say we got I don't know, mic doesn't sound working. So what they said is, let me just check, man. I can't hear myself. Okay, I hear this. So what they said is, what NATO did was, listen to me carefully. What NATO did was they said, listen, if we don't fight him in Ukraine, we're going to have to fight him in the Baltics. Because if he takes over Ukraine, he's going to move toward Latvia and all those small countries. Because there's more Russians there in Ukraine. Some of those small countries, 50% of the population are ethnic Russians. So if you continue to play the playbook of Hitler, of going from country to country under the influence of protecting the Russians, then they're going to have a war with the Baltics. And in the Baltics, they are members of NATO. They're going to have World War III. So what they did is they created Ukraine. They put the cheese for the rat. They put it in Ukraine. They said, come here, come. Take it over. And the whole issue was what we have today. Now, Russia is stuck in Ukraine, has lost 50,000 soldiers, losing a lot of weapons, losing a lot of money. All the companies moved out of Russia. Russia right now is nothing but a hermit country. Russia is nothing. Russia was nothing before. Now it's going to be more nothing. It's a mistake of being great. Putin is about 70 years old. I don't know what happened to these dictators. Once they get old, they start all this crazy stuff. They didn't need to. I want to show you a video from a professor. In 2015, he predicted what's going to happen.
And the end result, Ukraine down the primrose path. And the end result is that Ukraine is going to get wrecked. And I believe that the policy that I'm advocating, which is neutralizing Ukraine and then building it up economically and getting it out of the competition between Russia on one side and NATO on the other side, is the best thing that could happen to the Ukrainians. Yeah. What we're doing is encouraging the Ukrainians to play tough with the Russians. We're encouraging the Ukrainians to think that they will ultimately become part of the West, because we will ultimately defeat Putin and we will ultimately get our way. Time is on our side. And of course, the Ukrainians are playing along with this. And the Ukrainians are almost completely unwilling to compromise with the Russians and instead want to pursue a hardline policy. Well, as I said to you before, if they do that, the end result is that their country is going to be wrecked. Yeah. And what we're doing is, in effect, encouraging that outcome. I think it would make much more sense for us to work to create a neutral Ukraine. It would be in our interest to bury this crisis as quickly as possible. It certainly would be in Russia's interest to do so. And most importantly, it would be in Ukraine's interest to put an end to the crisis.
So you see what happened? The professor was saying this in 2015. This guy's name is John Marshamir. So the whole issue is, before I go, I mean, it's a little short. I don't feel right. What they're doing to Russia is what they did to the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. Russia is bleeding militarily, economically. In the end, they're going to self-destruct, and the Russian Federation is going to collapse. So Putin went into Ukraine to bring back the Soviet Union era. By doing that, he sent Russia to lose the Russian Federation. Russia will lose this war, trust me, because the West, they cannot lose. They know if they lose in Ukraine, it's over. Then they're gonna have to lose in other countries. And the problem with what's his name, with Putin, he cannot lose, because if he loses, he's going to get killed by his own military, and all that stuff. Anyway, I hope, I don't know, man. I don't feel like I'm very entertaining all that stuff, but I hope you enjoyed it, man. I've been sick 3 weeks, so forgive me. You hear the thing? I'm already having these wheezing. I'm wheezing already. Anyway, I love you all. I'll see you next time. This is Omar from the third. Thank you.